Alright guys, so welcome to part 2 of this construct series. Now for those of you that haven't seen part 1, I suggest just familiarizing yourself with that. The link will be down below and attached on this video somewhere. So make sure that you take a look at that first before hopping into part 2. Now part 2, just to let you know, we've got our little AI and our player at this moment in time. We have him facing the mouse cursor, we have some directions, and we have him, if he touches, he begins to flash. What we're going to do now is we're going to add a on mouse click for him to shoot a projectile to attack this enemy, and then we will create a destroy method as well for the enemy itself and count down maybe some health on the enemy so that we know that if we shoot more than once that we subtract from the health using instant variables, and then a destroy at the end. So let's jump straight into that. So firstly, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create a projectile. So again, we're going to right click, insert new object, and let's add a sprite for this. Let's just click over there, create a little circle. So look over here, there's our circle. Let's do that, and then let us just squeeze that in. Right, so animations we will also do, just to let you know, at a later tutorial. Let's just move that up a little bit. There we go. So in fact, just make that 8 by 8. And let us take this and pull it slightly off the layout view. The reason why we do that is we don't want it to be there on play. So if I click play now, you're going to see this little dot, and we don't want that. So we're going to just pull that off. Now you can spawn this. We don't necessarily have to have it the way that I'm doing it, but for now, let's just move it there, and we can make use of that shortly. So let's just go rename it quickly to bullet. And then we need to give it a very critical behavior. Now it's very similar to these enemies and these players. What we need to do is we need to assign a behavior to it so that we can obviously code that behavior in. So let's go there, left click on behaviors, add a new behavior, and let us go and add the bullet method. Now for now, what we're going to do is just leave this all stock standard. How this should work is just it adds the functionality to this projectile, and then we can hop over onto the event sheet, the magic sheet if you want to call it that. Right, so the next thing we have to do is we need to basically spawn the projectile from the player. Now, I'll always like to make sure that if you're going to have a weapon on this player, you need to set the origin point for this. So if you're going to have a little gun, you know, you need to basically go down to your origin point and you need to set it somewhere where you're going to want to spawn it. You can have multiple origin points, but for now, let's just put it out of the center of his face. Let's just assume that this is where we want the bullet to shoot from. So we're going to set that there. You'll see as origin 0, set it 0. Let's just leave that there. So we know that when we ask the player to spawn this projectile, it's going to come out there and not from the middle of the player. Right, so we go over to the event sheet and we need to add a new condition. Now that condition is really going to be the left click to shoot at the enemy. So let's click on add event, click on mouse, and we can go on click, which I would imagine mouse button is down. Yeah, let's go on click here. We're going to use the left click. You should have double click here as well. We're just going to have a single click come in, and let's click done. So we're saying basically on left click, do an action, and here we're going to go player because we're going to select the player. We want to spawn, so you can type that in here, spawn another object, and we are going to select that object, and that's going to be the bullet. And the layer is going to be 0 because we're working just with the base layer now to be 0. But theoretically, in the game itself, you're going to have multiple layers. You're going to have background, your tile maps, etc. That we'll look at a later stage in the next up and coming tutorials. And that image point, we're going to set 0. That's the one I was talking to in terms of the origin of where we wanted to spawn. So let's click done. Now, if we run it, we should be able to left click and shoot out a little projectile, which is fantastic. All right. The next thing we want to do is obviously have this collision. As we've done before with the player collision and then the flash, we need to basically ensure that there's a collision with regards to the bullet onto the enemy as well. So let's click add event, bearing in mind that you want to have them grouped correctly, but for now we'll just do this in the attack method. Let's click on a bullet and we'll say is overlay is on collision with another object, and let's select that object being the enemy. Click done. We want to ensure that two things take place. First one, we want to obviously hit the enemy, but we want to then first destroy the bullet. So let's click on that, type the word destroy, and let's make sure that happens. So if we play now, we want to ensure that this bullet is destroyed. Right, fantastic. So it doesn't shoot part, that we know it's not shooting through him, if that makes sense. Okay, great. Now let's make use of what we call an instant variable. Now, theoretically, we could just add enemy destroy, but that means the enemy would die on the first bullet. Let's assume that you want to give him a health in the sense that a hit marker that if we hit him more than once or twice, then destroy. So that's quite easy. This is what we do over here with regards to instant variables on the left hand side. Very much where your behavior sit, you've got an instant variable. So let us go to the enemy. Let us set his health instant variable. So we're going to click on instant variable and add new instant variable. Now, instant variables are used for things such as health, how much gold the player has, all those numbers and sort of analytics that we want to store that is basically only for that specific object. We would use instant variables. So yeah, let's call this health. Keep it a number because we're working with numbers, not strings in this case, or true or false, which is, if player dead or active, you would use a boolean, but in this case we're just going to use number, and we're going to set that number to 2. Let's click OK, and there we'll see instant variable, it's on the enemy, and it's set to 2. Now we can go back to the event sheet, and we can basically say that when the bullet hits the enemy, destroy the bullet, but at the same time we want you to subtract 1 from the enemy's health, from the instant variable. So yeah, we just go enemy, and we say subtract, and we say subtract from, should bring up the health, which is the instant variable, and we say the value is 1. So now if we run a debug, which is your little arrow here next to your preview, we run the debug layout, we will see our enemy over here, and we will see that his health is set to 2. If I shoot him, it should come down, and there it is 1. There you can see it's now 1. If I shoot him again, it will go to 0. Fantastic. Now we need to basically check that if this is 0, in this current condition, we need to then destroy the enemy and not destroy the enemy on collision, because we basically, what we're doing here is we're saying bullet hits enemy, subtract 1, destroy bullet, and keep doing that. But now we need to add what we call a sub-event. Add a sub-event, and then we need to check the instant variable. So in this case, we're going to basically just go enemy, and we're going to say compare an instant variable, and we're going to say his health is less or equal to 0, then do something. So it's going to check this variable every time that this main event clicks off. So it'll always check that, but as long as it's higher than 0, nothing's going to happen here. But if it's below 0, then it's going to do this action. Just notice that the tree structure, this is a sub-event. Now we can go enemy, and we can type in destroy. So let's have a look and see what that looks like. We click play. Theoretically now I should be able to shoot him twice, then only will he die. So 1 shot there, and another shot, and there he's now dead. Fantastic. So there we've got instant variables, and this applies to gold, in little items that you might want the user to buy, etc. Everything's going to run around the instant variable side of things, and then you would check against that, use it if it needs to be a global or whatever that might be. That is something that is tied to that object, and we can set them as we please in the properties on the left hand side. Right, so fantastic. So now we've theoretically got our little player. He's got a projectile that he shoots out, and we can obviously destroy the enemy with the bullet, and we're checking the enemy's health against the bullet. Right, the last thing we want to do is obviously the destroying of the player and then refreshing the layout. So let's go with player on collision. Let's go ahead and add, and we'll have a timer because we want him to first flash, then restart. So we're going to click on system, and we're going to type in wait, and we're going to say wait, and we're going to say let's wait 1 second, and then let's destroy player. So what we're saying is we want the flash to take place, then we want to wait, and then we want to destroy. Okay, so that our enemy also has the upper hand on us. So let's go ahead and play. Now if I touch my enemy, play, and dead. Right, so we had the flash set to 0.5, so let's go ahead and set that wait to 0.5 so that by the time the flash ends, it's more seamless. Let's just make sure that that's fine. And that is correct. Now you'll notice that the hero is not there. So let's go ahead and then create a new event, which will be called restart layout, which will be system. Let's type the word layout in. And we are going to then select restart layout. And that will allow us to respawn. 5 dead, and there's the enemy back. Great, fantastic. Right guys, so that wraps up this tutorial with regards to the shooting of our little projectile, as well as our instant variables, which allows the enemy to have health and whatever that might look like. Our next tutorial, we're going to be focusing on some more sort of advanced features, but this is really the basics with regards to that. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that little notification bell, and we will catch you in the next one.